بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Okay, so Bismillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Can everybody back hear me? Yeah? Okay, very good. So typically, we have events, we have a lecture, and then folks ask questions. I've been doing this thing for a long time. I was telling somebody else recently, we have a saying in Arabic, this ain't my first rodeo. Right, so in my experience, 99.9% of the questions you guys have nothing to do with the lecture. And that's not something that bothers me. I think that's okay. Because I have certain thoughts that I think I want to share with you, but that does not mean it gets to override the thoughts that you live with, the questions that you have, the things that are maybe confusing you, bothering you, or you've been wondering about, etc. I'm not claiming that I have the answers to those questions, but I'd certainly like to start by giving you guys that opportunity first. Because as far as listening to lectures of mine is concerned, there's plenty of those on YouTube. So, and many of you have already come and told me many times, mashallah, Ustadh, I listen to all your lectures. I go to sleep listening to them. Thank you, by the way, for helping my self-esteem. I help you go to sleep. Thank you. But this time, because I'm physically here with you, I think we should take advantage of that opportunity and have as much conversation as possible. And having said that, a couple of things. Some of you are okay, just grabbing the mic and asking a question. You don't feel awkward. Others of you have a complete, absolute panic attack when you hold a microphone and everybody's looking at you, and you forget your own name at that point. So there's no way that you can ask a question. So you'd rather write your question. That's completely fine. The next problem is your handwriting is so bad. When you send it to me, I think you wrote this in Mandarin, but you wrote this in English. So you're kind of stuck. So what we're going to do is, for about 30 minutes or so, I'll try to take the questions from the brave souls in the audience that want to speak up or write to me. But I'll also give you guys a few minutes, and probably before and after my lecture, and stay around as much as I can to speak with you individually, because some of you might not want to say your question in front of everybody, and you might want to ask separately, and that's okay. Just be mindful that there's a lot of you and there's one of me. So, if I gave everybody 1 minute, that would be 800 minutes. So, so I'll do the best I can. I'll absolutely do the best I can. Ooh, that was my breakfast. Okay, so now the last thing, if we don't get a chance to interact and you don't get a chance to ask me a question that you may have had, you can email me, and I'll give you my email address now. My email address is Arabic, ARABIC, @bayyina.com. If you don't know how to spell bayyina, you need to pray 2 rak'ah and slaughter a goat. I'll spell it for you, it's okay. BAYYINAH, Arabic @bayyina.com. That sounds like it's a generic email address that goes to some customer service department. That's my secret. I hide in plain sight. In fact, there is another email address called norman@bayyina.com. I've never checked it. That's what my team checks. But I check Arabic @bayyina.com, and I check it virtually every day. So if you ask me your questions there, I'll certainly do my best to answer you. If you ask me a crazy psycho question, then you'll go to spam, but that's okay. So inshallah, with that, I will allow things to get awkward. I'll wait for you guys to ask questions if you'd like to pass the mic around. Anybody would like to ask a question?
Hi there, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. What's your name?
Irfan, Muhammad Irfan.
Nice to meet you, Muhammad Irfan.
First of all, I'm a brand new subscriber of Bayyina app.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, thank you so much for giving us all this information and knowledge.
You're quite welcome.
So my question is, how to fight with compulsive thought, we call it waswasas, about the day of judgment, if it's going to happen or not, if it is going to happen or not, and how do we keep that refresh in our mind every day, especially living in this West Coast luxurious life.
So you're asking, how do we keep that thought alive?
No, not the thought, not that compulsive thought. How to keep that alive if the day of judgment gonna come or not, if that's gonna happen or not.
Oh, so if you're starting to have doubts about it or something.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. In fact, that's actually the topic of my lecture today. Yeah, so your question is gonna get the most time. for 45 minutes. So we'll get to it, inshallah. And inshallah you'll see. But just so you guys know, today I'll be talking about surah number 51. It's called Surah Al-Dhariyat, surah number 51. I won't be able to cover the entire surah. I'll cover as much of it as I can, but at least the part that covers how should we think about Judgment Day, and how did the Quran talk about Judgment Day to people that didn't believe in Judgment Day. Right? How did it have that conversation with them? That's what we're going to learn something about today, inshallah. And I think I'll try and finish the rest of that dialogue at some other point. But great question. Anybody else?
Yeah, right here.
Yeah. Wa alaikum salam. What's your name? Hamidullah.
My question is regards to the psychosis of the American society. Like, I'm a social worker.
Okay.
So it's very impressive at the way the amount of depression we have in American society. So I'm asking from an Islamic point of view, what do you think we can do to quell the way how the depression rate is working in society?
I'll start by telling you a story. Thank you for your question and thank you for the work that you do. And I think we need more Muslim social workers. By the way, we had 2 brothers, so we're not going to have 2 sisters for questions. But before we get to the next question, so I'll tell you a story. I went to Bahrain a few years ago, and I was invited to speak at a school. The school had about 2,000 boys and about 2,000 girls. And this was a elementary and middle school. So, or at least I think they had some high school students too. So the age group was maybe 10 to 16. That the kids that were there in front of me, and half the hall was boys and half the hall was girls. And you know, in Muslim countries we have a lot of formalities. So when I got to the airport, they handed me a giant bouquet of flowers and they started taking pictures. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with these flowers, but so you know, I gave them to the taxi driver. He was really happy. But anyway, so they had the question answer session, and the principal is sitting there, and there's some dignitaries that are sitting there, and it's like this big photo op thing, and the kids are there, and they're like, if any children would like to ask any questions. Nobody asked any questions. Nobody. All the kids were terrified. You know why? Because the teachers are watching the children like security guards. Like, what are they gonna ask? You could see the look of fear on these kids' faces. So I said, you know what, stop. We're not doing the question and answer session. I'm not doing a lecture. Keep the mic here. I'm just gonna walk into the crowd. And if they wanna talk to me, they can talk to me. Turn their cameras the other way. So I went to the boys' side, I went to the girls' side. I'm just walking through the aisles. Anybody want to sit and talk? And I kid you not, I ended up staying there for 4 hours with those kids. And I'll tell you something. The most common question, over 100 times, the same question. What do you do if you feel lonely and depressed and you feel like nobody understands you and nobody listens to you? What do you do with that? What does the Quran say about that? These are kids, and they're in a Muslim country, right? And it's not even one of the, it's an economically well-off Muslim country. They're not doing poorly, but psychologically, emotionally, so many of them are going through feelings of anxiety, loneliness, depression, that I used to think these are first world problems, these are American things, we don't really have these things. But then as I traveled more, I realized depression, loneliness, feelings of being misunderstood, anxiety, concerns about the future, low self-esteem. These are the kinds of things that are eating away at humanity today. They're not just a one-person thing. There are many, women that are sitting in the audience whose sister got married, and now they have anxiety that I'll never get married. And you have, sons here that are comparing themselves to somebody, their parents didn't help because they compared them to somebody else's son, and they think of themselves as less, right? So comparison is eating away at our societies. Lack of purpose is eating away at our societies. And there is no one answer to where depression comes from. Everybody's depression is different. Everybody's anxiety is different, right? So one thing that we do have in our religion is actually some general answers that apply to everybody. There's, like in medicine, you can't prescribe the same medication to everybody, but healthy eating applies to everybody, right? And then on top of that, there may be specific diagnosis. The same way in our deen, there are some general principles that apply for everybody, for us to be in a better emotional place, spiritual place. And then there are specific situations on top of that. And we need some special prescriptions. Each individual case is separate. So what are the general principles? The general principles actually have to do with certain attitudes. The first of them is a sense of purpose. And this is, we talk about this in the Quran, we talk about this in Islam before this whole social media culture and self-help culture, and everybody's a psychologist on social media, and everybody's got memes and rants or whatever else. But before all of that, the Quran was telling us about a sense of purpose. أَفَحَسِبْتُمْ أَنَّمَا خَلَقْنَاكُمْ عَبَثًا. Did you think we made you without purpose? Let me tell you something. You can have a house, you can have a car, you can have good money, you can have health, you can have everything. But if you feel like you have no purpose, you feel like you don't have any goal, any serious goal, other than just superficial things. Your goal is to get the next Chanel bag. No, that's not a goal. Or your goal is to lose 10 pounds. That's not a goal. That's still about yourself. That's just self-absorbed still. But if you don't have a goal other than yourself, something that's actually truly enriching, not just for your outside, but for your inside, if you don't have such a goal, it's going to be very hard for you to find even peace. You could have the most luxurious, comfortable life that people before you have never even imagined, and you can't sleep at night. You're depressed. Isn't it crazy that there was a time not too long ago where our grandparents or their grandparents were walking 4 hours in their village to go pull water out of a dirty well and bring it 4 hours walk back with that bucket, and then the mother was feeding her children, cooking food in that muddy water, and then they were sleeping comfortably at night after saying Alhamdulillah, and nobody was depressed. Isn't that a little wild? Because now we're pulling out the orange juice, the organic orange juice from our fridge, pouring it in a beautiful glass, sitting on a couch that's probably a couple of, $1,500, and we're sitting in an air conditioning room, sipping on it a little bit and writing about how depressed we are on Instagram. Something went wrong, right? Something went wrong here. There's something missing. And that question is actually something that I feel this is the day until people find their real purpose through the word of Allah, they're not gonna find their way out of that depression. Individually, inshallah, you find things that make you feel happy temporarily, they give you peace. People find an outlet, right? But those outlets are you just escaping the real void inside you. And that real void can only be filled when you and I really decide that we have to live a purposeful, seriously purposeful life. Anyway, next question. I'll try to make my answer shorter. Sisters turn, two sisters. Yes, Walaikum Assalam.
This is actually, my question is actually in sequence with his question.
Sure.
How do you find your identity? I mean, we all go through things in life that,
It's okay.
that break you, kind of push you away from your faith.
Yeah.
So how does one work on finding their way back?
So let me sit down for this one. Thank you for your question. It's very brave of you to ask. And may Allah protect you and heal you. So please listen to this carefully. Allah created us in this world, and everybody knows that. He created us in this world temporarily. We don't have a lot of time here. And by the time we reach our adult age, to the time where we are functional as adults, to the point where you're not too old to be able to even carry basic functions, your back is going to start hurting, your eyesight's going to start going. We have a few years in between. These are the years that matter, really, at the end of the day, right? And in those years, we're going to go through a lot of suffering. That is part of the package. There's no way around it. Prophets of Allah, the most beloved people of Allah, were kicked out of their home by their parents. Some of them murder was attempted of them by their own family members, like our own Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. His uncles tried to kill him. That can't be easy. There are people that celebrated the death of his child from his own family. That can't be easy. Ibrahim alayhi salam is being expelled from his own by his own father. Yusuf alayhi salam's brothers are figuring out whether to kill him or to leave him in a ditch. And you would think after years of hurting him in the way that they did, years later, maybe they feel bad about what they did, right? Like they did something messed up at the time, maybe you regret it later. No, later when they even heard his name, they said, yeah, we used to have a brother, he was a thief. That's what they say about it. They have no mercy in their hearts, even years later, after what they did. And Nuh alayhi salam is in a hellish marriage for a very long time. Lut alayhi salam, oh, my mic went out. I think I'm censored. Okay, Lut alayhi salam is in a hellish marriage for a very long time. Why am I telling you all of this? People that Allah loved so much and honored so much that they're in the Quran, those people had some pretty bad experiences in life. One of my favorite examples is Maryam. Maryam salamun alayha, one of the most honored women that ever lived in the history of the world. You know that, right? Jesus, Mary, mother of Jesus. And what does the Quran describe about her? She had to face the kind of humiliation and not be able to say where the baby came from. She has the baby, she's going to go back to her Muslim community publicly, and they're going to say all kinds of things to her, like a public shaming event. And she can't talk back. All she's going to do is point at the baby. That's all she can do. And she doesn't know what's going to happen. And it was so overwhelming. You know what she said? She said, Ya laytani mittu qabla hadha. If only I could be dead before this happens. The Quran records that she wished that death would come instead of the humiliation that was going to come. What I'm trying to get at is that you and I are going to face some terrible, terrible pains, and they will not come at the hand of some enemy who hates Islam. It's going to come at the hands of people that are the closest to us sometimes. It's going to come from people that are in family. It's going to come from people that also claim to be Muslim. It's going to come from people that we expected they will be the safest for us, and they became the most harmful to us. That's going to happen. But you know what the Quran teaches us? The Quran doesn't teach us that if you become strong in your faith, bad things won't happen to you. That's not what it teaches us. What it teaches us is when bad things happen to you, then you have the choice to be either like, this is the part I want you to remember now. When bad things happen to you, you have the choice to be like Adam or to be like the devil. You'll have that choice every time. If you could just remember this, that's the answer to your question. You have the choice to be like Adam or to be like the devil. What does that mean? Adam had a good life. You can't get better than Jannah. And he, because of his mistake, ends up a long way down from Jannah, right? And there's no way he's going to make it back in anytime soon. And you could say that is a pretty depressing state to be, that he's been humiliated by his mistake. How could I have stooped so low? How did I allow the devil to get to me? And his only way back is Allah just gave him words. Allah says He just gave him words. فَتَلَقَّى آدَمُ مِنْ رَبِّهِ كَلِمَاتٍ فَتَابَ عَلَيْهِ. Adam came into contact with words that came from his master, and so Allah turned back towards him. Allah will sometimes put you in a state where you will fall, only so you can find His words. Only that. In that moment, maybe your friend's words go in one, they don't even go inside. Your family's words don't even affect you. Nothing's helping. And in those moments, that's when you find Allah's words. That's when you find a strength you couldn't find anywhere else. And what is the way of shaitan? The way of shaitan is not being defiant against Allah. The way of shaitan is once you fall, you decide, what's the point now? I've already fallen. Why would Allah let me fall like that? Clearly He hates me. So why should I even believe in Him? Why should I even worship Him? That attitude, guess who was the first one who had that attitude? It was shaitan. And you know what he would love? He would love to spread that attitude into every single human being. Because if he's cursed because of that attitude, the best accomplishment he can have is make you hopeless. You don't have to find yourself. You're already there. You have to just not lose yourself. Don't let waswasa, don't let negative thoughts about yourself, negative thoughts about people, and especially negative thoughts about the future and about the past. Don't let that eat you up. You don't own the future and you don't own the past. It's already done. And you have no control over the future. You have no control over your next breath. The only thing Allah made you responsible for is your current day, today, right now. That's all He gave you. You own nothing else. What are you doing with this today? You know what most people that fall into shaitan's trap? They're either thinking about the past with their moments, and they're losing their present, or their anxieties about the future with their present and they're losing their present. And there are people that will have anxiety for years and years and will lose so many years thinking about what will happen. You see the irony in that? So develop if you really want to develop a hatred, don't develop a hatred for yourself or for your mistakes or for others who hurt you. They're not worth it. The one who deserves your hate is shaitan. Understand his attacks. Don't let him get to you. Don't give him that. Do not give him that. Final thing I'll say about this is from a mental health point of view. I say this to my students all the time when I teach them Quran. You know, Allah gave us things that are very valuable, right? Like if somebody told you, I'll buy your eyes, would you sell? If somebody told you, I'll buy your nose, just chop it off, or give it to me, like 3 million, 30 million, would you sell? No. Things Allah has given you are very expensive to you, right? They're priceless to you. You know one thing Allah has given you? He's given you your emotions. He's given you your anger. He's given you your happiness, your fear, your sadness. Those are your emotions, right? And you know what? We give them away too easily, where they're too cheap. You wouldn't give up any limb of yours, but you give your thoughts. Your thoughts are expensive. You control them, but you give your thoughts to this person who hurt your feelings. They did what they did and they went and they're gone. They don't think about you, but you have given them so much space in your head that they don't deserve. You have given things like space in your mind that isn't worth it. So once you realize how priceless and how priceless and how valuable your thoughts and your emotions are, you will stop spending them on people and on things and on events that aren't worth it. This is part of valuing ourselves. And just, I know I keep saying last thing, but this question was heavy and I think maybe it'll help everybody too. So Allah says, وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. Just know that. Allah said He honored the children of Adam. He honored the children of Adam. You know what that means? It doesn't matter what anybody thinks of you. Because who's honored you? He has. Maryam was being humiliated by everyone. And Allah said, and she's the most honored by who? By Allah. Does she feel honored at that time? Can you imagine when she's standing there and they're accusing her and slandering her and making all kinds of comments about her? Do you think she's feeling honored and respected? No, she's not. But the only thing that's keeping her going is my honor doesn't come from the tongues of people and from the eyes of people and the way they look at me. That's not where my value comes from. My value comes from my Rabb, and He already gave me value. All I need to do is point at what He gave me. That's it. That's good enough for me. It's very powerful. And that's something our faith gives us, that people without faith, you can go to all the therapy you want, and I believe in therapy. You can go to all the therapy you want. You're not going to get this. This will only come from our faith. So thank you for your question.
My first question is, if you could talk a little bit about actions that help your du'as to be answered. So this is something sometimes I have trouble answering my children about when they ask me, because with kids, as we all do, sometimes we make du'a with television, we make du'a for something we really, really, really want. And then they come back and say, why isn't Allah answering my du'a? So if you could, I'm sure you'd be a lot more eloquent than I've been. And my second question is a little bit of a big question. I ask this because I've gotten different answers to this, and hopefully you can help clarify this. It's about making up your fasts for pregnant and nursing mothers. So I have 3 children come along, and I've missed a lot of Ramadan's fasting, and I have paid fidya for each time I've missed the month of Ramadan, but it's a lot of fasts that have accumulated. It's just so daunting to me. If you could clarify.
Okay, I'll try. Thanks for your question. About the first question, I'll tell you something. I don't know how this happens. This before I got here, I was talking to one of my students in Arabic class, and he said he had some other exam in school, right? And he wasn't prepared. And one of the other kids got COVID in his class. And the teacher got COVID. And they delayed the exam for 10 days. Okay, so his exam was the next day. He's totally not ready. Teacher gets COVID. Now they're delayed for 2 weeks, right? And he tells me, Ustadh, I'm telling you, man, I made dua and Allah answered my dua, yo. It was so awesome, because I'm telling you, it works. If you make a dua like that, then Allah will just make it. And I said, So you're convinced that Allah struck down another human being with disease so that you, who were lazy to do your coursework, could have an extra 10 days, so the universe bent to your will. And then you're like, thank you, Allah. You're thanking Allah for your teacher getting sick? Like, what? You have a very interesting relationship with Allah. So the thing is, we have confused, and I've said this before, but we have confused dua with Amazon Prime deliveries. So when you make dua, and you're like, some of you are, daughter-in-laws, and you make dua, and then the next day you're like, my mother-in-law is still alive. I don't know what's, So you've confused the idea that dua means that what you ask Allah for, and people confuse this awesome because there's a famous hadith that you even ask for a shoelace, right? So people then assume, okay, well that means that whatever dua I make, that Allah will make things work out in accordance with what I asked Him for. Now, let's take a reality check. I keep bringing things back to prophets because prophets aren't just the best example in their character. Their stories are really important to understand what my relationship with Allah is supposed to look like. What am I supposed to think about Allah? You don't think that Nuh alayhi salam ever made dua that he should have a better married life? Like that doesn't occur to you that he had a 9.5 centuries of really terrible, and his son, by the way, his son, right? You don't think that ever he made dua that, Ya Allah, I'm your prophet, I'm pretty good, I mean, I don't even make sins. And I keep making dua that you give me a righteous son, or you just change his heart somehow, and Allah is just not answering my dua. Do you ever see that from Nuh alayhi salam? Ibrahim alayhi salam has done an enormous good deed that we can't even imagine the reward for. He built the Kaaba. You know what that means? That for millennia, anybody who's worshipped Allah, facing Allah's house, who gets a reward for it? Ibrahim alayhi salam. Even our messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam restored the legacy of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And Ibrahim alayhi salam used to make dua for his father, yes or no? Yeah. But did his father become guided? No, he didn't. So if you and I say we made dua for something, and oftentimes we don't make dua about ourselves. You know what we make dua for? For somebody else to change according to our preference. Ya Allah, change this person's heart. Ya Allah, make this person like me. Ya Allah, make that person hate that person. Ya Allah, don't ever let my uncle come back to this city. Just, like, what are you guys make these du'as about like, somehow Allah will answer your dua by some kind of hypnotic reprogramming of somebody else's brain, and they will become a different person, and then your dua will get answered. And if it doesn't, you're like, Allah dua nahi sun raha, pata nahi kya baat hai. Like Allah is not answering my prayers. I don't know what's going on. Let's understand something about dua first. The fundamental purpose of dua is to give you the strength to deal with reality. The purpose of dua is not to change reality. It is to give you the strength to deal with reality. If the purpose of dua was to, change reality, if that was the idea, I often go back to the story of Musa. There was a giant snake that Musa's staff turned into a snake, and everybody in the court was terrified. Now let's imagine a giant python, anaconda, Harry Potter, I don't know, this is a big giant snake, and he's there. And all that snake has to do is move up to the throne and take one bite. And who's dead? Fir'aun is dead, and they can do nothing about it. There's no security right now, there's nothing. If the dua is end this problem, the problem will end with the death of Fir'aun, the Pharaoh. And yet, that's not what's happening. Musa alayhi salam has to face him, and the only thing Allah has given him, even with the way of these miracles, is to strengthen him, to enable him to make the argument that he needs to make. Not to eliminate the enemy, not to eliminate him, but to face him. So we have to, when we think about our du'as, we have to understand, if you do a survey of all the du'as in the Quran, they're actually about empowering yourself. Forgive me, show me mercy, guide me, provide me, protect me, right? Our biggest enemy is shaitan. How come there's no one dua? Ya Allah, just kill shaitan, please. Just be done with it. No, protect me from shaitan. Right? Protect me from shaitan. Give me protection. So the du'as in the Quran are there to empower us, not to change reality around us. Allah can change reality, by the way. Didn't He change reality for the young people of the cave? By the way, did the people of the cave who slept for centuries, right? They slept for centuries. But did they ask Allah, Ya Allah, just, put us to sleep for a few hundred years? Is that what they asked for? No. They asked for guidance, actually. وَهَيِّئْ لَنَا مِنْ أَمْرِنَا رَشَدًا. So facilitate guidance for us. Ya Allah, when you ask Allah the right things, then He can bend the universe to your preference. But you don't ask Allah to change reality, you ask Allah for yourself. Right? So you fix your thoughts about dua, and then you realize how dua actually works. And with the wrong concept of dua, which is a very, dare I say it, it's a Protestant concept of dua. It's a Joel Osteen type concept of dua, which Muslims have unfortunately adopted. I went to a Joel Osteen program. I went there just to see what they do. It was being held in the American Airlines Center a few years ago at Christmas. I was like, I'm bored. Let's go. So I go, I got a seat up in the bleachers just to see this is Christmas, this is Jesus season. What are they going to talk about? And he gives this whole speech about, this is your year of due. Everything's going to work out for you. Jesus is going to get you that new job. You're going to get that promotion. That divorce that just ain't over, it's going to be over this time. Like he's just making all these promises. And then even the people sitting next to me, yes sir, yes he is. Yes he is. And then his mother-in-law came on, she said, my doctors told me that I got 1 year left because of my cancer. And that was 1987. Here I am. And everybody was like, you know what they're doing? They're saying dua will change your life to the way you want it. Job, money, health, all of that will come through dua. Yeah, but the fundamental purpose of dua is not to extend your luxuries in this life. The fundamental purpose of dua is to keep you on the right course in this life. We didn't come here, living well is great, but we didn't come here to live well. Allah will have us live well when we live purposefully. That's the benefits package, it's not the goal. But all of our du'as have become about the benefits, and we've lost sight of the goal, right? So we have to focus on that goal, and then you see how Allah will just open up the door of benefits. I've met thousands of people who said, I decided to do something good in my life. I decided to help open a masjid or something. I decided to help open schools or dig wells or do something good. And I was a small businessman or I had some career, but the moment I started doing these things, my business exploded. It became 10, 20 times bigger than I ever imagined. What is Allah doing? Allah is opening the doors of the sky for those who do good. Because when they see purpose, Allah says, I'm going to give you more of this world, so you put more of your resources to good use. That's what He does. That's His formula. So become of those people, and I pray all of you do. Okay, real quick, couple more, and then we'll start.
Real quick on the fidya.
Oh, on the fidya, yeah. I have no idea. But if you were my family, and I've had situations in the family like that, I do believe that fidya is enough in situations like that.
Now we have a very, very young boy who would like to ask a question.
Ooh.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Haider. Why are all the prophet men?
Wow.
Okay, guys, assalamu alaikum. Why are all the prophets men? Well, okay, so...
No more questions from the youth?
No, absolutely. This has been asked before, and I think that the idea, let's first answer it from the Quran's point of view. وَلَا تَتَمَنَّوْا مَا فَضَّلَ اللَّهُ بِهِ بَعْضَكُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ لِلرِّجَالِ نَصِيبٌ مِّمَّا اكْتَسَبُوا وَلِلنِّسَاءِ نَصِيبٌ مِّمَّا اكْتَسَبْنَا وَاسْأَلُوا اللَّهَ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ. Allah says, He tells men and women the following in Surah An-Nisa, by the way, the surah of women, right? He says to them, He says to all of us, don't wish for some things in which Allah gave advantage to some of you over others. Allah gave some things to men that He did not give to women. He gave men certain responsibilities, for example, that he did not give to women. He gave women certain responsibilities that he did not give to men. Don't wish for what one has that the other doesn't. لِلرِّجَالِ نَصِيبٌ مِّمَّا اكْتَسَبُوا. Men have a portion from which they are going to earn. Meaning whatever Allah has given them, they have to work with that and earn good deeds for themselves. وَلِلنِّسَاءِ نَصِيبٌ مِّمَّا اكْتَسَبْنَا. And women have a portion from whatever they have been given, they have to earn good deeds for themselves. وَاسْأَلُوا اللَّهَ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ. And ask Allah to give you His preference. In other words, you are not better or worse if you got to do something a woman got to do or a man got to do. You are in a better position if you got to do something that Allah preferred for you to do. So this question, behind it is the psychology of comparison. I feel like I am worth less if I'm not doing something the same as the opposite gender. But this is not just about men and women. This can be, I feel like I'm worth less if my sister got a master's degree and I didn't get it. Or my cousins had a very fancy wedding, but we didn't have a very fancy wedding. Comparison, 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 comparison. And by the way, the root of all comparison is Iblis. He got to get everybody to do sajda to him, and he got the responsibility on the earth, and I didn't get it. Comparison is one of the sicknesses that the devil wants to put inside you and me. Men being messengers of Allah, men being humiliated publicly because they were messengers of Allah, men being threatened to be killed because they were messengers of Allah. All of that was a responsibility Allah put on men. At the same time, yet it is an honor that Allah put on men. But women have been given other honors. And by the way, historically, there's interestingly also a debate. There's a debate because Musa's mother received revelation to put the baby in the water. Right? And that's not something you can say, I just have a feeling I should put my baby in a river. You know, and if somebody says, I should put my baby in a river because Allah told me, then either it's revelation or you belong in a mental hospital. There's only two possibilities. And that clearly is revelation. Because that's not a common sense thing to do, to put a basket in a moving, violent water river, right? The other case is angels are coming and speaking to Maryam directly, right? So if the idea is revelation only came directly to men, well, Quran says otherwise. Then came the issue, should we consider these incidents enough to consider Maryam and Jochebed, which is her Hebrew name, Musa, should we consider them prophets? Allah knows. But did they receive revelation? For sure. For sure. Are they honored in Quran? For sure. So that would be my response to your really nice question. Good job, Haider. Very brave. Really nice, clear voice. And a radio voice. Yes.
Right here.
Yes. Yes.
Go ahead, brother.
Yes, Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Abdulaziz, I just have one question. Can I read that? Microphone makes me nervous a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. How important is the hifz? My daughter, she's 7 years old. She started doing the hifz. We did good progress, but lately she's losing passion. She's saying she's feeling a little bored, especially revision part is hardest, and we are not like Arabic speaking, and if the Quran is available, the Quran is available with my phone right now. I can take it out, right?
Yeah.
My reasoning is saying that nowadays, it's not super important, the hifz, maybe tafsir is super important.
Okay.
Yeah, for her, it's like, I'm asking her to learn like Chinese, because she doesn't love it. It's a similar analog. Like I'm giving her like Chinese book and she's asking her, okay, learn it.
Okay, so really nice question. What's the purpose of hifz now in the age of information where you can have the entire Quran on your app and tafsir is more important? I think hifz is a fundamental gift Allah gave this ummah, and it's an honor to be able to memorize the Quran. And one of my biggest regrets in life is that I didn't memorize the Quran when I was younger. It is absolutely one of my biggest regrets. And I think my understanding of the Quran and my appreciation of it would be infinitely more of value if I memorized the Quran. So, and the ability to contemplate the Quran and to understand the Quran properly, at a certain level, you actually must memorize to get to that certain level. Having said that, for children's education, I don't believe there's a standard answer. Some kids love memorizing. If they do, let them memorize. When they're starting to lose motivation, teach them something else that's meaningful. Teach them stories from the Quran. Teach them the meanings of the Quran. Teach them some things about the Arabic language. So the Quran that they memorize starts making more sense to them and they say, wait, I want to go back and finish, right? So losing motivation is that's not the time where you push them even further, because then it's just associated with something they don't want to do, they were forced to do. You're teaching them as children because you want them to live with these things and benefit from them as adults. So you're preparing them for adulthood is what you're really doing, right? And preparing them for adulthood means they have to have the right emotions and thoughts associated with what they're learning. If the memory of learning Islam is associated with being forced to do something, or doing something boring, or doing something time-consuming that they don't see the point in and all of that, then this will not help them in their adult years. But I have kids, some of them have memorized the entire Quran, others have not. And I don't consider that like a vice in any way. Some kids are more prone to it, others aren't, and that's just up to them, inshallah. Okay, one last one. Yes?
Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikum salam.
My name is Naheem. This is more of a lighter question. This is more of a lighter question than all the deep questions we have. It's about where have you studied Islam? Yes.
Oh, okay.
Where?
Google. No, I'm kidding. No, that's it? That was the question?
That's it.
Oh, okay. Well, where have you? Okay, I'll tell you something. New York. If I'm being completely honest, New York. I started studying the Quran when I was in college, and I couldn't make heads or tails of it. I couldn't understand the translation. I read the Yusuf Ali, and the English was more complicated than probably the Arabic. That's what it felt like to me, because when I read "Hast thou not seeneth," then it brought me traumatic memories from high school English and reading Shakespeare. And then when I read "Glad Tidings to the Believers," you ever read "Glad Tidings to the Believers"? I was like, why is the Quran talking about detergent? Because, Tide. So I was confused for a while. But then I stumbled upon, by Allah's grace, I stumbled upon some really brilliant Quran teachers that were just helping me connect with the Quran at a very non-academic level. The Quran felt like a conversation that you're having with Allah, right? And that's how I started. And I felt something so powerful that I'm having a conversation with Allah directly through His words, that got me hooked. And I wanted to have more of that conversation, so I started studying the Arabic language while I was in college, and I did whatever I could to try and study it more and more of it. I still consider myself a student. In fact, I teach Arabic 5 hours, 5 days a week, 1 hour class every single week, without fail. And I study Arabic twice that amount, still. So I consider myself very much a student of the Quran and of the language, but I do love sharing what I learn. So I don't consider myself a scholar. I've never called myself one. I don't like the term sheikh for myself at all. First of all, because in original Arabic, sheikh means old man. So for that reason. But yeah, I come from a very untraditional approach to studying. Having said that, Allah brought me into contact with some remarkable scholars, imams, actual sheikhs that I was able to sit with. I wouldn't say that I learned from them officially, but I will say that because I come from that outside perspective, I studied tafsir and I studied the sources, and I developed questions that were not being asked. So I would go to them and ask questions that maybe even they hadn't heard before, right? And it allowed for rich, different kinds of conversations that weren't being had. And that led me to where I am pretty much today. I have a team of researchers and scholars with me at Bayina. We're a research team. So when I study the Quran, I study it in a group, in collaboration. So part of our group is people that are hadith experts, part of the group is tafsir experts, part of our group is Bible and biblical studies and Hebrew studies experts, comparative religion experts, and we all kind of share notes and debate things when we discuss an ayah. So in my Deeper Look series, before I lecture on an ayah, I have long discussions with that group or pose questions to that group. And even if I have a crazy thought, it's a safe space to share crazy thoughts so they can crush them, right? And they can share their thoughts too. So we've created that kind of an environment where we can do that, because I do believe that in every field, how do things move forward? Things move forward when people collaborate, when people work with each other, right? Science moved forward because scientists collaborated, right? But in Islamic studies, somehow anybody who says something, they're kind of their own thing, and they don't want to lean or take benefit from other people's work, because almost it's like they want to hog all the credit themselves. I'm not interested in hogging credit. I'm interested in learning to the best of my ability. Allah has given me this opportunity, that's what I'm going to do. So right now, the way I learn Islam is I study and I engage whenever I come across a difficult hadith issue or a difficult history issue. I engage my group and I engage certain scholars and I grill them. I ask them all kinds of hard questions and take notes. And I don't take their answers. Don't wish you were created in it for a different time. Yeah, each one of you were created in this time, in this age, with these people in your life, with these resources, in this place. Allah put you here because you are the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and every one of you is responsible for turning the world into the best place it's ever been. That's what you're here for. There is no, when is the golden age of, so what? If we were living in the golden age, what would we do? Golden age is so nice. Look at all those Islamic judges and stuff. It's so Islamic, you can hear the adhan outside. Wait, so there's no PlayStation in the golden age? No, I want to go back. So Allah created us for a different time. Okay, I want to give a lecture too, but okay. You can keep asking questions, it's fine. Yeah. Oh, he has a question. Oh, come here. Climb up. Good job. Come here. Come over here. What's your name? Come. This one. And I'll hold it for you.
My name's Bart. How was Allah made?
He wasn't made.
Huh?
Yeah. Nobody made him. Everything else is made. Allah isn't made.
I don't get it.
Yeah, because Allah was there forever. Before everything.
Huh?
Yeah.
All right, give him a hand. Give him a hand.
Pretty good, pretty brave.
Gentlemen, we just have one last question from the sister.
One last question. Yes, one last question.
I have a friend that say they believe in Quran and everything, but they are skeptical about hadith. So I wanted to let her know.
Okay. When you come across folks that say they believe in the Quran but they're skeptical about hadith, what do? I say you do nothing, because you are not in a position to debate anything. I think that you and I should not be engaged in those kinds of conversations because they're counterproductive. If those people are interested in learning something seriously, they wouldn't be having those conversations with you. They'd be having those kinds of conversations with serious scholarship. And if without consulting serious scholarship and doing research, really serious research, they have come to such a conclusion, then there's no point debating. Because at the end of that debate, even if you give the best arguments, they'll just say, well, you know what, I don't agree.